Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the Dusty Trails and Tall Tales podcast. I'm your host, Matthew, and today we're saddling up for an international conversation. Joining us from Germany is one of the most prolific Western writers alive today, Mr. Alfred Wallon.
Thank you very much for having me on that program, Matthew. I really appreciate that.
Sure, glad to have you here. He's with over 200 novels to his name and more than 100 Westerns. Alfred has helped shape the genre for readers around the globe. From the Kennedy U.S. Marshal series to his latest project set in Post Alamo, Texas, Alfred brings history and storytelling together in powerful ways. Let's dive into the man behind the stories and learn how the West is being kept alive across the Atlantic. Welcome to the show, Alfred.
Thank you. It's a great honor for me that you give me the opportunity to talk also outside of Germany to interested fans and readers.
Well, let's start from the beginning. How did your love for Westerns begin?
I guess I have to blame my dad for that. He was reading Westerns all of his life. As long as I remember, he had always these brochure novels on his bookshelves, these small novels with 64 pages, which you can buy in supermarkets and drugstores and railway stations. And uh, I discovered them when I was about 8 or 9 years old, and he always said, "Get your hands off that, don't read them, just prefer a good book." And you know what I did? I waited till he got to work, and then I grabbed these novels and dug into it. And that was the time when I began to read Westerns.
Yeah. Well, what made it stick with you?
Well, it was in school. We had an English teacher, which I'm very thankful that he chose a novel from a certain James Walker McSpadden, and this novel was called Pioneer Days of Kentucky. It was a short novel about Daniel Boone, and we had the task, after reading this novel, to continue the storyline with our own words. And I guess that was the day when I first discovered there is something more than only reading Westerns. I wrote 10 pages and they couldn't stop me even after when the English lesson was over. And from that time, I always started about the thought I would become a writer someday. And it started in 1980 when I wrote my first novel. And it took me 1 year till I found a publisher. Well, and from then it's now 44 years and I'm still here.
It seems like 1981 was a good year then. It's the same year I was born.
Really?
Published your first novel.
But the internet was still far away, and you can really imagine how difficult it was to get non-fiction books about American history. Back at that time, we had the so-called America houses, which was just like a university house with many non-fiction books, but only about American history, also American novels. You could go there, lend the books for a couple of days and bring them back. So this was my first encounter with real American history. And it didn't take long until I found out that what I read in these novels and the reality, well, there is a large difference between that.
Yeah. Have you ever traveled to the United States to visit any of the sites you write about?
That is a question I was expecting, but no, I haven't been there.
Oh.
Never.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, the only thing I know is from books, from videos, from magazines. Well, nowadays it's easier. You can research everything in the internet. You can see videos, you can collect pictures. There was a time when I thought it would be great to go there, but I was also working very much and I didn't find the time. Now I'm 68. I do not know if I will go there. Maybe an opportunity will come someday. I say never say no.
Yeah. Well, how many other genres have you written in besides westerns? And
Well, there were action and adventure, pirate novels, science fiction, horror and fantasy, even trucker and novels like The Fall Guy. Anything, even anything except stories like doctors and hospitals. This is the only thing which I haven't written, but the rest I have done.
uh, wow,
But my love goes still with the historical Western. That's my favorite kind of
uh,
literature, and it will always be my favorite.
what is it about the western that always calls you back to it?
Well, I have to thank my dad for that because he introduced me to that genre in such a way to understand there is much moral values and ethic values in it, and it's always fascinating to see a believable character who fights against the bad guys with an historical background, and this is what always keeps me going back and read novels about the early days of the Western, the pioneers, the frontier novels. It always fascinates me, and I will never give that genre up.
Yeah. Well, how popular is the western in Germany? You have some German publishers that.
I have two. The first one is called Blitz. I'm working with this company for more than 30 years now, and they recently have changed the owner and they have changed the program. So I'm now with a new publisher, which is called EK2. It's normally a military publisher, but last year they asked me if I could imagine starting a Western series for them and doing also some Civil War novels. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm working on. At the moment, I have two, but who knows? Maybe I have next year three. I don't know.
Well, what kind of books and literature did you read growing up?
Um, English or German Westerns?
Well, either.
Well, back at the time when I started reading, we had nothing else like the German writer Karl May. I read him, of course, but it didn't take long to find out that these novels were just nothing more than romantic fairy tales. And after that, I got in connection with American Western authors. I read Elmer Kelton, Jory Sherman, William W. Johnstone. I know William W. Johnstone's niece, Jo, via Facebook. We are friends for many years.
Oh,
My favorite author still is Terry C. Johnston. I have all of his 31 novels, and in my opinion, they are the best historical novels which have ever been written.
wow. So Carl May has had a pretty big influence on you?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Uh, Maybe I'm the only German who thinks so, but back at that time, there were his books in the bookstores. They even made movies about that, movies which are filmed in Yugoslavia. And well, the Apache warriors didn't wear the right clothes. Uh, they didn't act like real Apache Indians. And I found that out very much. And this is what I don't like at all.
Well, what's your writing process like for
Um,
you?
Normally, I first think about an idea about which historical period I want to write. Then I do some researches, and then I'm clear what I want to write about. Then I construct my fictional characters and let them act together with historical characters. They describe the real history from their point of view. So this is interesting because especially when I write Civil War novels, my characters are always on the side of Stonewall Jackson or General Lee or other generals, but they describe the story from their side of view. So I still have some freedom to tell things very personally, but I do not change the history. This is my way of writing. Normally,
Yeah.
it was when I started, you contact the publisher, you had to first present a storyline about 2 or 3 pages and the first 10 pages of the novel. They read it and then they said, okay, go on, or well, try again, but not with us.
Yeah.
But now, as I'm long in the business now, it's just enough if I tell the publisher when I say, look, I have an idea, let me write about this and that, and they say, well, do it.
Do you plot out your books, or do you just start writing and see how it goes?
Uh, I still do that story outline of about 2 or 3 pages. And this
Uh,
storyline is so that I just have to fill it with action and chapters. But the storyline is fixed until the end.
uh, well, do you write in German and then translate it to English, or do you write either in either language?
I write in German. And then we have this magical program called DeepL, uh,
Yeah.
which, which translates my German novels into reasonable good English, but still a lector has to work on that. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that I have with Todd A. Barcelow, a lector with Dusty Saddle Publishing, who polishes up everything, but it's easy to translate it with DeepL. Otherwise, I would have taken years because I can communicate in English. I can write also normal
Yeah.
conversational English, but doing fiction in English is completely different.
I would imagine so. Well, how did your relationship with Dusty Saddles begin?
Well, it's about 2 years ago when I thought, well, now the time may have come that I could try to step into the international market. But as you may imagine, nobody knew me.
Yeah.
Uh, I wrote to various publishers, and the answer was always the same. Well, we have enough American authors. We do not need anyone from over the sea.
Yeah.
And I had a good friend called Manuela Schneider. I do not know if you know her.
I've seen her name before. I don't know her.
And she had some contacts to Dusty Saddle Publishing. And she mentioned my name with Nick Whale, which is a chief publicist. And Nick said, well, give it a try. Then we started, and the first step we did is do a co-write in the Timber series with
Uh,
with Robert Hanlon. I wrote 3 novels in that series, and well, they were successful. Also in the top 100, all 3 of them, and they still sell good. And
well,
then it was Nick's idea to give me my own series, and I said, well, try it with a new series about an U.S. Marshal because Marshals always sell good. And so Kennedy was born.
that would be this book right here.
Yes, this is the first one.
Yeah. Kennedy U.S. Marshal. How's that been going for you?
I'm still overwhelmed because 4 novels have been published so far, and all 4 have been in the top 100 still. Book
Wow.
one, book one came out in January this year, and it's still selling good. Book one is also available as audiobook. A couple of days ago, it was published, and we are working now on a German publication for the German readers because my German readers are already asking me when will be available in German because not many Western fans are also able to speak English and read English.
Yeah. Is each story a standalone story, or is the
No,
whole series like one long continuous story?
it's the magic word is always at the end to be continued. Uh,
Uh,
let me explain. Jim Kennedy was living in Texas with his parents. His dad was a trader, and his parents didn't survive a Comanche attack. Kennedy was the only survivor, and after he got away without being killed, he swore revenge and he joined the army until they tracked down the Comanches under Quanah Parker. And after that, he heard that the Texas governor, Robert Pierce Fullerton, was looking for new U.S. Marshals. So he joined. He was trained by an experienced marshal, and from that on the storyline goes. But I thought I should create a storyline which lasts a couple of novels. So I created a criminal organization called the El Paso Ring, which is a bunch of influential businessmen who control larger parts of Texas. It's a rancher, a banker, and a freight man.
Yeah.
And one of Governor Fullerton's marshals find out that there are weapons smuggled to Mexico to support a planned revolution, and this marshal is killed. And now the governor gives Kennedy the job to find out what's really happened. And the storyline is one man against the El Paso ring. And
Yeah.
it will take me some books until this matter is settled, and then we will see what's happening then.
How many more books do you foresee this series being?
Well, Nick Whale said yesterday you can write as much as 200 as long as it sells. So it is planned to write every 6 weeks a new novel.
Wow. So what
Besides
is,
besides the German novels, which I'm still writing too.
yeah. So you pretty much wake up and write all day and then go to sleep and do it again.
And no, you will be very astonished. All these 44 years of writing, I've done that always in my leisure time and on the weekend. Working
Wow.
as I was working as a salesman all these years. I was a media consultant selling advertisements for a newspaper company over here.
Wow.
This was my daily job from, let's say, 8 to 4 or 5. And when I came home, then I started to write. And in all these years, I still have made it possible to write 200 novels. So I do not understand why other authors are always blaming that they don't have time. I had it because dream. I just wanted to write and publish. And this dream, which is happening right now with Kennedy and other novels in this series, I've waited for that more than 30 years. So you can believe I'm just absolutely fascinated what's happening now.
But what is it about the Kennedy U.S. Marshal series that makes Kennedy unique? How is he different from any other Marshal?
Well,
Or,
maybe it's the ongoing storyline, and I guess it's also the background with that El Paso ring.
uh,
So he's just a normal marshal. He's a hero, like all the other marshals are also heroes. But in the fourth book, Last Train to San Angelo, I included also U.S. Marshal Timber with a guest appearance. So I'm doing that very often to attract readers to other series which I have already written or which I plan to write. So let's call it the Alfred Wallon universe, but
yeah.
it's a good way to sell novels.
Yeah. Well, which book in the series so far is your favorite?
The first one was real good. The second one was written in co-write with Paul L. Thompson, who gave some interesting inputs. The real favorite is book 3 and 4, I guess, because I've included a family from Texas called Calhoun. They have a
Uh,
ranch called Rancho Bravo near San Angelo, and this Calhoun family gets now their own series with Dusty Saddle Publishing. So more work to do.
yeah. So you've got another full series coming out. Has it already been
Yeah.
started?
The first one is out. It's called The Long Way to Texas and describes the story how the Calhouns left Missouri independence with a wagon track to Texas, and from there they built their ranch.
Yeah.
And then from there, these are not new novels. These are novels which were already published in Germany. So I just have them to translate, add a few things here and there. So it's easy work.
Oh, okay. Well, you have a new series with, you said EK2. Is
Yeah,
it Die Texas Rangers?
yeah. It's the Texas Rangers were always very fascinating to me. There were so many movies and books about them, and I read a few books. I have four books from an author called Stephen L. Moore, which is called Savage Frontier. This
Yeah.
is my historical material, uh, and he has written down and researched what happened through all these years. So it's easy to read these chapters and make stories of that. I have written 16 novels so far for another company, and with EK2, I'm doing a reboot of this series with new novels, which continue 1 year after the last 16 novels. And EK2 is very much interested to push this series because the Texas Rangers are still existing. They celebrated their 200th birthday 2 years ago, and you see, Frank Hamer captured Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
There are so many stories to tell about all these years, and I've, I've still have to write a lot of stories about the Texas Rangers. I'm just at 1838.
Well, you've got a long way to go.
Really, yes. I'm 68 now. I guess I have to be to get 120 to do all these things which I still have in mind.
Well, how much research goes into each of your books? How do you research that before you start writing?
At first, I read what I want to find out. I look in various books, collect what I need, and then I'm doing researches also in the internet until the storyline is ready. This takes me normally each day about 1 hour or so, but after 1 week, everything is ready.
Yeah.
Then I start writing. Just let me describe it that way. Many authors write chapter 3, then chapter 1, then chapter 7, then the end, and then they have to combine it in a certain way, which I still do not understand. I write from the beginning until the end, read it once again, correct a few things here and there, but never exchange chapters, never write something new or delete something. Then I translate it, send it to the publisher, and as soon as the editor gives his okay, I start with the next one. Probably I send it to the publisher today and start tomorrow with a new one.
You've mentioned Civil War novels. Do you have a separate series for the
Yeah,
Civil War stories?
yes. It's called Civil War Chronicles. Uh, there are 10 books out in Germany so far, and the first one has also published with DSP. Uh, a second one will be translated a little bit later, but at the moment I'm concentrating on Kennedy because this is my best-selling series, and the readers expect that. We even have pre-orders for novel number 5, which still is not yet finished, but people are waiting
Oh,
for that. So,
yeah.
but but the Civil War, I will continue that too because it is interesting for the readers to know the Civil War Chronicles is a series about a Confederate unit with a Confederate lieutenant called J. Durango, and he is some years later, after the Civil War, the new foreman of the Calhoun Ranch. At the Calhoun Ranch, he is already foreman because these novels take place in 1870, and the first book, The Long Way to Texas, is a flashback to 1859. I will have a few flashbacks, but at that time, 1870, he is already foreman, so the readers can take an impression about his early years in the Civil War. So this also belongs together to the Calhoun universe.
Yeah. Well, of all the characters you've created, which one is your favorite and why?
In a certain way, it's Jay Durango from the Civil War Chronicles. I always had the outlaw Josie Wales in mind,
Yeah,
and and
that's
and
one of
this,
my favorite movies.
and this is how he looks like. This is always my favorite. Kennedy is, let's say, a younger Tom Selleck, if you want to
Hmm.
describe him.
Yeah,
And it's an interesting hero because he is completely different to what I write normally. It's action and adventure. Historically is okay, but it stands not at number one.
yeah,
Entertainment and action has to be first. My publisher said, well, the readers in the USA like Gene Autry and Roy Rogers, the good heroes and the good characters. And my favorites are normally torn characters and novels which have not a happy end. But now I've gotten used to what the American readers want, and I'm fulfilling these wishes.
yeah. Well, I prefer the anti-hero characters myself. They seem like they're more fun to read about and to write.
Yeah,
It gives you a lot more options as far as your story.
yes, of course. But I'm still very satisfied with the situation as it is today because about 1 year ago I would never have expected that Kennedy is selling so good. But well, that's how it is.
Yeah. When you've written stories with other authors, how does that process work? Do you each write a chapter or?
Yes, I've done that in Germany with other authors a couple of years before. Normally, uh, I send the co-author the storyline of 2 or 3 pages and ask them which chapter do you want to write because this storyline already contains chapters with details.
Mhm.
After I know what he wants to write, I start, let's say, with chapter 1. I send it to him, then he writes chapter 2, but also works on chapter 1 that we have one writing style.
Uh,
Then he sends it to me, I make the same, then we go on with chapter 3, and well, in 2 or 3 weeks, everything is ready.
what do you hope readers take away from your stories?
I have a few readers in Germany who are very thankful for what I'm doing, especially if you compare it with the Western readers in Eastern Germany. You know, there was a time when Western novels were not available in Eastern Germany because we had a wall between West and East.
Yeah,
And when this wall was fell down, many people bought Westerns, and a few ones always wrote me, "This is what I've been waiting for all of my life." So I get great compliments. People are always asking me what I have planned for the next time. They are making suggestions. They're asking me what I want to write, what they would like to have. So EK2 at the moment asked me for a Civil War novel with a very special subject. Do you know what the Hanley was?
yes,
This
I'm
was a
familiar with the submarine.
submarine in the Civil War.
Mhm.
Nobody in Germany has ever written a novel about that. Well, this will be my job.
Oh, that sounds pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I've seen a movie about that. I have read a few books about that. And EK2 plans also a series about famous generals of the Civil War, North and South.
Yeah,
Still also have to be written next year.
yeah, I do Civil War reenacting, so it's one of my hobbies. So I'm quite familiar with that time period and
Oh,
in the Hun as well.
reenacting is great. We have a few groups over here too. We have also Western cities. I live in Augsburg, which is in southern Germany near Munich, if you know Munich. and they have a Western city out there, but they are not really reenactors. They are just people wearing cowboy hats and cowboy clothes, eat and drink, but they don't read.
Yeah.
I think they
Have
drink.
you have you visited any of those places in Germany?
Yes, a few ones. I've also did a few appearances there when I read from my books. That was interesting because I could talk to them people who know at least something about the history of the United States.
Yeah.
Younger generations over here, for example, they don't know that a civil war was ever existing.
They didn't know the Civil War happened in the United States.
No, the problem is I knew someone many years ago who said to me, Westerns, well, these are novels for elderly people without social security. Don't have friends. They are not married. They are just dumb guys. And Western has become a niche in Germany. Uh,
Oh,
Fantasy and romance and urban fantasy and things like that, they are selling. But I always think that there is still a market, but you have to reach these readers. And with my German publisher EK2, I'm reaching them. They do mailings. They do a lot of social networking on Facebook and Instagram, and they know definitely very much about Amazon algorithms.
oh,
So they know how to sell.
yeah. Well, how has the Western genre changed since you started writing?
Well, in the 70s, we had four publishers who all were publishing about 6 or 7 different series on this supermarket business, these small novels with 64 pages. There is only one left, and the
Yeah,
only thing which they are publishing are new adult novels. You know, Lasseter.
yeah.
This is continued in Germany since 1970 through 72 and has reached now more than 3,000 weekly novels. And
Oh,
this is a kind of stuff which I do not like at all. I do not like adult westerns.
yeah. Never been a fan much of them either.
Uh, I wrote one just to give evidence that I'm able to do that if someone asks me, but it's not.
Yeah,
It's never been my favorite.
yeah. Where do you see the future of the Western genre heading?
In Germany or outside of Germany?
Oh, in general, overall.
In general, a western isn't dead as long as the publisher supports his authors and he
Yeah,
knows what he's doing. And if a publisher loves that genre, he will do more than any other publisher. This is my experience. And my experience with DSP is that they really believe in what they are doing.
yeah,
And it's the same with EK2. They just let me do my ideas, and this is always what I was hoping for. When I say I have this idea or that idea, what do you think about it? They just say, well, do it. And I can decide which covers they want to use. I can speak which what I would prefer. We have always a certain dialogue also with DSP. There is a market for the Westerns, and if I see it internationally, well, if I see the mass market publishers, well, there is only William W. Johnstone as far as I know,
yeah,
and he's still selling. And
yeah,
there is Wolfpack as far as I know, and then there is DSP, but DSP always publishes new westerns each day,
yeah,
and they wouldn't do that if they do not believe that they would sell.
yeah. Both DSP and Wolfpack are relatively new because, like, as few years as 10 to 15 years ago, there wasn't
Yes,
really a major,
yes. So
major Western publisher.
yeah, Wolfpack has authors like Lauren D. Estelman. They have Peter Brandfold, and
Yeah,
these are good books, and DSP does a lot with new authors. I was one of them. Uh, I guess now a few people know my name, and
Yeah.
that was what I had in mind.
Well, we've got a question from Mike here. He asked, "How do you create compelling and authentic characters?"
How I to create the characters? Well, first there is the historical background. And then I create a fictional character who would just fit into that story, in that historical storyline. And from then, everything goes by itself.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to new writers just getting started?
Oh, could I ever give an advice? Um, the only thing I can say is become a successful Western writer is no miracle. You just have to work extremely hard for that. You just
Yeah.
have to write each day. And you must always think of the word the end from the beginning. And you must also consider the fact that after the word the end is written, the real sales begin. So you must do also, as an author, marketing activities, must give interviews, must do public readings, must have a homepage. So the author who still doesn't want to talk to anybody outside will not be so successful. So if you have your name on the cover, you have to stand in front and say, "Hey, that's me. That
Yeah.
is that is what I have written, and I just want you to buy because of this and that reason." You have to sell.
Well, you said you worked as a salesman for many years. Do you think that helped you in pr- promoting your writing?
Definitely, definitely, because I was also uh, planning marketing activities for different companies. So I even write press articles for them if they ask me. So I've been a couple of times in German TV. Uh, I've also been interviewed for quite a few times in Germany. This is one of my first longer international interviews. Thank you for that. And
Sure.
it just makes fun if you see how things are going.
Were there any specific challenges promoting yourself, being international when writing about the American West?
Well, there is no challenge so far at the moment, but the only challenge is now I have to find somebody to ask how I can change a 24 hours day into 48 hours. But I haven't found anyone so far yet.
Yeah.
But it's extremely much work to do. But you see, uh, it might be stressful in another uh, man's sight, but if you burn for something, if you love it, then you don't look at the clock on the wall and says you have to stop for now. You just write. So
Yeah.
as long as you can.
When you're writing, like, what's your typical writing process look like during the day? Like, do you get up in the morning and do research, and then how many hours do you spend writing each day?
Well, my job as a salesman ended about 2 years ago. Now I'm a retired salesman,
Yeah.
but I still work part time for the company for at least 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I have much more time uh, now. So I have the idea to increase my book publication significantly. Normally, it's when I was working, um, I went off visiting customers from, let's say, 9 to 4. When I came back home, uh, I started writing until 8, 9 in the evening, looked over it. I could even stop in the middle of a sentence and continue tomorrow. The
Hmm.
only thing which I have in mind is just try to read 2,000 words each day.
Uh,
Sometimes it's only 1,500, sometimes it's also more. But I must always have a plan. I must have a structure, what I want to reach when
Yeah.
the day is finished.
Well, if you could sit down with any legendary Western writer, living or dead, who would it be?
Larry McMurtry, because he created Gus McRae.
Yeah.
And Gus is, in my opinion, an idol. Robert Duvall, well, he is a famous actor, but in my opinion, he will always be Gus.
Yeah. What's your favorite Western movie?
Oh, there were a few ones. Of course, Lonesome Dove with Robert Duvall, but I also liked very much Horizon with Kevin Costner.
Did you?
Yeah, it was. A lot of people over here in Germany said it was boring, but I was just sitting there with open eyes and was fascinated because of the storyline.
Yeah. A lot of people in the U.S. didn't really care for it. They said it was boring and like long-winded, I guess. But I thought it was pretty good,
Yeah,
considering he's telling a long-range story.
I also loved Yellowstone in 1883
Yeah.
because Yellowstone is nothing else like a Western, only it's acting in our normal time. But let's say it's Dallas only in Montana, Wyoming.
Yeah.
And I saw that series, and I was fascinated.
Yeah. What is it about Yellowstone that you like?
Well, of course, Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
I I also liked Rip and Beth, and then I thought about the fact why do not publishers publish novels with such a storyline?
Yeah.
So I said, well, let's do it. So I created a series called Red Rock Ranch with
Huh.
absolutely the same characters from Yellowstone, only it is taking place in Arizona. So action across the borderline with Mexican drug cartels, but we also have a foreman who falls in love with the rancher's daughter.
Huh.
I only changed the names, and Dusty Saddle Publishing has issued the first two of that series.
Wow.
It was published in Germany by Blitz, and then I said, let's try it in the USA. And as Yellowstone had the prequel called 1883, I thought, well, I could do that too in Germany. So I created classic Red Rock Ranch novels, which took place in the 1870s, 1880s, and
Yeah.
it was located near Tucson, and it's just like the old TV series The High Chaparral,
Huh.
with just the same characters, only different names.
Wow.
And, and rumor says that DSP wants to publish them in English.
After writing so many books, how do you keep your stories fresh? How do you come up with new ideas?
I do not want to sound arrogant, but they are just developing in my mind, and I write them.
Huh.
Uh, and I still have many new ideas. I just want to say, if I compare it with the German market, many readers only know adult westerns.
Huh.
So with my stories, I am new for absolutely younger and new generation. And many people are telling me, well, westerns. Well, my granddad read them, and my dad read them, but why? Why should I? And I said, well,
Yeah.
just give it a try. Read one of my books, and then we'll talk again.
Yeah.
They buy it, then they contact me. Well, I have never expected that it would be like this. I want to read something more from you. That's a
Yeah.
secret. You just have to sell.
What advice would you give to another international author trying to write for an American Western audience?
He should at least know details about the American history because the readers are used to facts, not only fiction, and they will very soon see. if this new writer knows his genre or he's just someone who wants to make an experiment writing a Western. When I write a Western, I always have a movie before my eyes, and I want that the readers see the same what I see when I write. So I have to describe it. Many would say, well, he just directed his horse into town, stopped before the saloon, went into the saloon and had a beer. I would write the sun was sinking in the western direction while the lone rider reached the town. I described the houses on the main street. I described the weather. I described the sun. You must do that so that the reader sees something.
We've got another question from Mike here.
Yeah.
How do you balance the need for historical accuracy with the desire for engaging storytelling in your westerns?
It has to be at least 50% of both. I must have a historical background in the novels. Sometimes it's more fictional, sometimes it's more historical. It just depends on what I'm doing. If I write Civil War novels, I have to consider the fact that the South lost the Civil War and Lee surrendered himself at Appomattox. You have to know that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you couldn't write a Civil War novel. And if you write a novel about the historical Gettysburg, you have to know where the battalion stood, on which hill, at what time the cannons were fired at the enemy. The movie Gettysburg was a good example for that.
Well, what's next for you, Alfred? What's the next publication you have coming out?
At the moment, it's Kennedy Book 5. At the weekend, I will be ready, I guess. Then next week, I will have the translation. The book is called Outlaws on the Run. And one of the leaders of the El Paso ring will be caught and brought before trial. I won't say more, but something will be happening on that way to the court.
Yeah.
Then I have to prepare Calhoun Book 2, the Texas Ranch Western series. I have to translate the first Red Rock Ranch Western classic. Then I have to continue my second Texas Ranger novel for EK2. After that, I will have to start with a Civil War submarine book. And
Yeah.
after that, I guess the year will be nearly over. But I'm afraid that there might be some additional projects which I'm not yet aware of, but they will be coming.
Well, was there anything in particular that you would like for our viewers to know about you and your work?
Well, I have a website. You can find me on Amazon, my books, and I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. And if anyone wants to know something, he can always contact me. Uh, I'm one of the authors who are very much interested in discussing and corresponding with readers. If I have the time, you will always get an answer from me, perhaps not on the same day, but within the next 2 days. And without readers, a good author cannot be successful. Well,
Yeah.
if you write something for the readers, you have to have time for the readers, and that's
Yep.
what it's all about.
What's the best way for readers to contact you?
Uh, by Facebook,
Okay.
yeah, and then they can contact me. I also have a website. Just Google after my name,
Alrighty.
yeah, and from there everything will be possible. My website also lists all the books which I have written. At least my biography is in English. There is an English section about Dusty Saddle Publishing. Uh, so don't be afraid. I can talk and correspond in English. So if anyone wants to know something, here I am.
Alrighty. Well, Alfred, thank you for joining us. It's been a real pleasure learning about your incredible journey as a writer and your passion for keeping the Old West alive.
I
For those
think
watching, be sure to check out the Kennedy U.S. Marshal series and all of his upcoming work. Thank
and
you for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time.
And I thank you for this opportunity. I cherish that, and you've done a great job asking the right and interesting questions for me. And
Okay.
let's say till we hear again from each other, and
Sure.
bye for now.
Bye for now. You're always welcome to come back when you have a new release.
I will do that. Be sure.
Alrighty.
And bye.